And I've had agents come into the open house and be like, you said it. You say it. This has happened to me too. Go ahead, you say it.
Yeah, they come in and be like, how did you get this listing?
How did you get this
listing? They put
listing?
you on the spot. Like, it's your fucking business how I got this listing.
Oh my God, I know.
Like, walk away.
Dollar make that cash. Under all is the land, the real estate. Courtney and friends about to show you how to generate wealth. Get educated, do for yourself. Add a couple notches to your belt. Under all is the land. Under all is the land. The real under all is the land. Under all is the land. The real estate. Coming to you live from ACME Real Estate in Los Angeles, California.
Hey everybody, welcome to Season 1, Episode 5 of Under All is the Land. I am your host, Courtney Poulos, with my rock star co-stars, Silke Fernald.
Hello.
And Dominique Madden.
Hi.
How you guys doing today?
Awesome.
Splendid.
Oh, wonderful. Today we're going to talk about a really fun topic, things you should not ask your agent and why. Yeah, I feel like just to get started, you know, it seems to me that a lot of agents don't coach their clients on lots of things, but especially what they should and shouldn't ask agents at an open house, and kind of like things they probably shouldn't ask you either. So we're gonna do the work for you here on Under All is the Land, and we also have a special guest star, Leslie Black from We Fund LA, who's going to share a few things that you should not ask your lender or do to your lender. And she's going to give us some tips on this changing market. Is it changing? Is it bad? Is it good? What's the lending environment like? Things you want to know, okay? And we can get started now. I want to talk about etiquette at open houses. Have you guys noticed that like it gets a little wild lately? Like I feel like when I started in real estate, people were very like courteous and kind and kind of demure or something at open houses, but lately, I'd say in the past couple of years, it's gotten a little bit funky. And I feel like our agents not telling their clients, hey, don't do that at the open house. I'll give you an example. You know, I was hosting an open house, and literally this agent, I think, came in. I think it was an agent. I don't know, because he didn't greet me and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. But he came in and his clients were in there and they were talking. We had like 30 people at the open house. They were talking so loud about how they felt about everything. Did you see this? Why would they put this closet here? Why did they use this fixture here? Oh my gosh, that's just awful. That would never work for me. I'm like, oh my God, shut up.
Mm-hmm. That might have been their tactic.
It might have been, because there are some people who then try to like, oh, well, this house is, won't work for me.
But that doesn't work.
And no, it doesn't work.
No.
Why doesn't it work?
That like weird, like reverse psychology, right? They like try to be like, oh, we're going to just criticize the house, and then we come in. It doesn't work, because we're going to have more than you offer.
Right.
And if you're already telling me at the open house, I'm going to be a pain in the ass during escrow, I'm going to tell my clients, this is the deal. This is what I overheard them say at the open house. That's my feeling about it. Just so you know, when we, if we get into contract with them, there could be difficult.
Right.
And nobody wants that.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I had somebody come to my open last Saturday, and he was a contractor, and he came with the agent and their clients. I'm not sure why he was there, but he was literally walking through me like, I would put blue tape here and there and there. And I pointed out all the little flaws. And then the agent was like, well, we can, during inspections, we can deal with that. And I'm like thinking,
if you I see you.
I see you.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that we do remember. We're like elephants. Like I remember we talked about that before. Like the way you behave is memorable, right? Mm-hmm. So, coming in and loudly voicing your opinion at an open house is probably not a great tactic to getting the house.
No, and we make sure to communicate like whatever we're picking up to the seller, so that they know what's going on, who's saying what their sentiments are about the house. And if you're picking it apart, then that's not a positive indication that you actually love the house. Mm-hmm. And whenever sellers accept buyers' offers, their hope is that they actually love the house. So if you're criticizing it, just know it's not coming off like that.
Yeah.
Right.
They love the house, and their hope is also that they stay in the deal and can close the deal. So you want somebody who can close the deal.
Right. And maybe somebody who, especially if you did a bunch of work to get the house ready for the market, you know, somebody who like appreciates all the hard work it took to get that house ready for market. Right.
Totally.
Yep.
And have you ever had somebody try to negotiate the deal on the spot at your open house?
Oh my God. Several times. Several times. I had one open house years ago where like it was several people who came in over the course of the open house were like, sit down at the table. Let's talk. You know, can I get it for $100,000 less? I'm like, first of all, I'm sorry, I can't sit at the table with you. I'm hosting.
Right.
But also it's pretty popular. You know, we price conservatively, so it's likely to go over. You know, it's like you're not going to negotiate. One, I'm not the person who's making the decision, so there's that. You know, but two, if you see a lot of foot traffic in my open house, it's highly unlikely that we're going to go for $100,000 less. And that's actually another thing. It is, you know, it's so frustrating when you have people come into your open houses questioning your price.
I was just going to say that.
The foot traffic should be an indication on how we're priced. If it's busy, guess what? People are seeing it as a deal. If it's not, then maybe, you know, I mean, then maybe there's something up with the price. But, you know, if you see a lot of foot traffic, we're probably looking good.
Yeah, probably. I had one time I was hosting an open house on Monterey Road in El Sereno, or Herman, really, El Sereno adjacent. And this person came in with a little crew of people. He introduced himself as a former LA Department of Building and Safety inspector, retired, and he proceeded to go through the house and point at things and say, well, this needs to be hardwired. He opened, like where it broke for me is where he opened the sink underneath the sink. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, do you not realize that I'm working here? I'm here on behalf of my seller. You need to leave. Well, I thought this was a public open house. And I was like, you're not welcome here right now because this is not an inspection. This is not your job. And you're being rude, really. And I made him leave. And he tried to take a brochure on the way out, which I promptly took back from him. That's not for you.
You're not taking that.
You know, but I was like, the audacity of someone to walk in to someone else's like home, A, you don't own this place, and B, where someone's working, and this thing that we've worked so hard to bring to market, and to take a giant dump all over it and think you're entitled. I'm sorry, that's some Karen stuff that like I don't tolerate anymore.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that going around for sure.
It is not acceptable. I'm like, where do these people learn
and the
etiquette?
moms come with their buyers to the open house, and I had a mom once, like literally like ready to ditch her agent there on the spot to talk to me and tell me, if we work with you, can we make something happen here? Can we have a better price and all that? And I'm like, okay, number one, I'm not representing you. Like, you have an aid, this is not happening.
Right.
And no, we can't. This was so rude.
That's another thing. It's like when people ask you, if you represent me, will I get a better deal? Am I guaranteed? Like, while you're there at the open house, the reality is the seller's going to choose the best offer. No matter what agent it comes from, they're going to choose best price and terms. That's what it is. Do people who write with the listing agent sometimes have an advantage? Yes, but sometimes they don't. In fact,
and it's
sometimes
insulting. It's insulting to the agent, to the craft of agenting, to what we do, to have your buyer go, represented by you, whoever you are, go to another person's open house and say, and maybe you have written 10 offers and lost out, but that's another story. But you don't go in and tell the other agent, oh, we have an agent, but listen, we're going to just ditch that person, go with you. What do you think it makes me feel? I'd be like, I don't want you. You're not loyal. You don't think we're not worth. I don't like it. It's
you
just
think agents are afraid to tell their buyers what's up or what?
I don't know.
It's like,
I don't know.
Straight talk.
I think buyers get desperate.
Scary.
Some get desperate and they do the wrong things. But
they go rogue.
Yeah, they go rogue.
I also think that sometimes, like the advice that's given is reactive. Like, it's given after the scenario's taken place as a reaction to whatever that was versus ahead of time to actually prepare the buyer on how to act and what to say.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We should. That's why we're doing this. We're trying to give you guys out there a little heads up on how to behave at the open house, because it really does make a difference. And if you're having a hard time, if your buyer wrote 10 offers and lost, you're having a hard time getting your offer accepted, and you're approaching every listing agent there while your agent's over there checking out the other room saying like, hey, I'll write with you. Well, maybe that could be part of the problem. Yeah. Then maybe that's part of the reason you're not getting accepted. Because I'll tell you, sometimes a lot of times, most of the time, the majority of the time, I way prefer to work with another agent than to do dual agency,
100%.
It's just there needs to be a buffer there, a professional person. So I respect buyer's agents 100%. Yeah. But it's also agents too, agent to agent. I was hosting an open house in Studio City when ACME first opened, and this agent came in and brought a crew of agents to our Brokers Open, but there were members of the public there too. Buyers were there. And he was like, so, ACME, I've never heard of ACME. You don't do a lot of deals around here. I'm the neighborhood specialist. I've been doing deals in this neighborhood for 30 years. And I'm thinking like, who the fuck are you right now? Did I pass you the microphone? Oh my God. I don't remember what I said, but I'm sure I was being very cheeky. Like, yeah, we're the most innovative, awesome boutique brokerage ever. You're going to see our signs everywhere, and we don't just limit ourselves to one neighborhood.
Or
I know exactly.
You haven't
I
heard
don't
of
know your
us?
name.
Like, really?
No, but it was so rude. And
Yes.
I've had agents come into the open house and be like, you said it. You say it. This has happened to me too. Go ahead. You say it.
Yeah, they come in and be like, how did you get this listing?
How did you get this
listing? They put you on the
listing?
spot. Like, it's your fucking business how I got this listing?
Oh my God, I know.
Like, walk away.
There were these agents that came to a lot of our open houses, and this one time she said that to me. I think she always said it to me, but I was always like, haha, or maybe I said how I got the listing.
Yes, I know.
And I said, you know what? That is a very rude question. So don't ever ask me that again.
Good for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, come on, people. But also, we've had feedback from people saying that they are completely ignored at open houses. Yeah. Like agents are just ignoring the buyers. They're walking in, they're walking through. They don't even get a nod. There are agents on their computers, on their phones. So, there is also agent etiquette that needs to be, acknowledged.
Sure. But I will say that. Oh.
Go.
I was going to say, I will say also that, a lot of times buyers and neighbors and sometimes agents also come in and don't speak. And
they don't speak to you, so you don't speak to them.
Well, no, I mean, I speak. I speak, period.
Right, I speak too. I mean, the proverbial you.
Too.
Maybe that's why the agents aren't responding to me.
I speak, but, sometimes even when I speak, they don't respond.
Right.
And I'm like, hold on, like this house, you coming into this house right now, this is a gift. Like, I didn't have to open this. I didn't have to be here for 3 hours today to let you in. And my client didn't have to open the door for the public. We could have done private showings. So when you enter an open house, acknowledge the agent. Make sure that you're saying hi, that you're greeting. You could announce your names if you wanted to be friendly. But, acknowledge the agent, because I peep that too. If someone comes in and goes through and doesn't say anything to me or doesn't sign in or refuses, to sign in or acknowledge me.
It's awkward.
It's creepy too.
It's disrespectful.
I will acknowledge that.
Me
I will
too.
take note.
And you know what? I say something. If you've ever hosted an open house, with me, I'm like, excuse me. Hi, I'm right here. See me? I'm the agent. I've got a sign-in sheet right there. I'm not messing around.
She does that.
Because, it's your job as a buyer or a guest or a neighbor, whatever it is you are going into someone else's house, to announce yourself. Have some respect. You wouldn't walk through someone's front door without being invited. So here we are making this invitation to you. Don't sign in shit shoveler. Don't be cheeky and say, well, I don't want any phone calls. Fine. I'm not going to call you if you don't want to be called. Trust me.
I'll make a do not call note
But
right
yeah, right now, no problem. No, I respect that.
Yeah.
It's cool. You don't want to be added to a newsletter. Yeah. I understand that too. But at the end of the day, at the very least, show up, announce yourself, be a dignified human being about your tour, watch what you say, be kind, and you will be welcome to another open house.
Enjoy the house.
Enjoy the house.
Yeah. Take this beautiful presentation.
Exactly. It all comes down to respect. So moving on, I mean, to that end, there are a lot of things that buyers ask, and I don't think maybe some do intend it with malice, or I'm not sure, but I do think they should know that there are a lot of questions that buyers ask that do violate federal fair housing standards. So we're going to talk about that.
We have so many.
So many. So would either of you like to begin?
I'll start with one.
I'll go.
Hello. Hey, is this a safe neighborhood?
So as real estate agents, we can't answer that. Why? We're not crime specialists. We don't have the information or the data. All you're really asking is, is there a reputation for crime in this neighborhood or something? But whatever information we give you is probably not going to be accurate.
Right.
And we're not supposed to know that.
I'm not responsible for telling you that either.
How could I? How could you be?
How do I know if it's safe?
Plus, like, how can you predict future crime?
Exactly.
One.
Totally.
And two, like, how savvy the person is at protecting themselves. You know, like if you go taking your dog at a walk at 3 a.m. every night,
anywhere,
that is a risk that you are taking.
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't have an alarm system on your house
or
in a city,
loaded gun in your pocket,
or that is a risk you're taking. Yeah, so crime is, I mean, like, whether an area is safe is subjective also to the person. So I can't tell you what's safe for you and what's not.
That's very good point.
I don't know what that means to you.
Yeah, there's many resources online. You can do digging. It's somewhat a rabbit hole, but go for it.
It is a bit of a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I always tell people, if you're going to go on a site like crime mapping or something like that, go on the site, look up where you currently live, and acknowledge how you feel about it. You live in Santa Monica, you think it's safe? Okay, let's see what the real data is. And then look at the neighborhood you're thinking to buy in and see how it compares. Because I can tell you, there was a while there where I was selling in Highland Park, and everybody was like, Highland Park, and the crime was lower in Highland Park than it was in like Santa Monica at that time. I don't know what it is now, per crime mapping. So there. But also call the police department, call the local precinct and say like, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house on this street. Can you tell me if there's any like action going on or hot spots or like what the general vibe is? But at the end of the day, the agent can't possibly be responsible for giving you this information. And I hope that agents out there are being careful how they respond to that.
Yeah, I always encourage people to talk to neighbors.
And that ties into the demographic question. Lots of people come in and ask, who lives here?
I think people speak in code words. And sometimes they're expecting us to answer in code words. I'm not here for any of it.
But some are more code wordy than others. Some others come straight out. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, if somebody actually came into I had a listing in Mid-City, and it was an agent who came into the open house and said, is this an African-American neighborhood? And I was like, you know, you're an agent. I'm an agent. That's a federal fair housing violation for me to even indulge that question. And also, I don't know. You know, I have no idea. But it was like, why are you asking me that at my open house?
Yeah, you should know better.
Neighborhoods in LA are so diverse anyway that it's a crazy question that people, like, it's crazy that even people ask that question still.
It's so crazy.
You know, I mean, if you're in a city, you are literally, especially like LA, it's a melting pot.
Yeah.
All
and
over
that's
the
the
place.
beauty of it. Like, I usually just kill that question by like, first of all, I'm not really allowed to answer this. And secondary, it's LA.
Right.
There's everything, everybody, everywhere, all at once. And that's why we love it. And that's it.
Yeah, totally.
And then you usually get these faces like, oh, okay,
well, where it gets tricky, and I'm just calling it like I see it here, you know, like it, hate it, whatever. I'm saying just things I think maybe are coded or tricks. You know, there are testers in the field. So like one time I got a call from somebody who was pretending to be, or I don't know if they were pretending, it seemed like a pretend phone call. And it was like, I'm Korean and I want to live in a only Korean neighborhood. What neighborhood would you tell me to live in? And I was like, well, I can't really direct you to a specific neighborhood, but you can tell me if there are particular areas that you would like to search in, and I can help you find properties in those zip codes. How about that? You know, and I don't remember how the phone call went, but I think it pretty much hung up after that. Like, I don't think I didn't like work with that buyer. It was just like a cold call, like a Zillow lead kind of a thing.
Right.
So that's where it gets tricky, is when agents think they're safe to answer the question, either because they're of the same race or gender or whatever, like, sexual orientation or something, they feel safe to answer that question, or because it seems like it makes sense, right? I'm a Korean person and I'm looking to live in a Korean neighborhood. Where's the risk in answering that? But there's always a risk in answering that question. That is not our job.
Mm-hmm. True.
Yeah. So some of the other federal fair housing things are religion. You ever had that come up?
No.
No?
I have to say that's one of the things I don't think I've ever had to deal with.
I haven't either.
Where LA is so
I haven't.
sort of.
No, I mean, I think the people that I know who were needed to be within walking distance of a church or a temple or mosque or whatever, they told me where they wanted to look. It wasn't like me telling them, they were like, I'd like to be in this block or these blocks, which I think is fine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can tell me where you want to live, what the boundaries are, and I would love to know where you want to live, so I can find your house.
That would be useful.
So don't tell me I need to be walking distance to whatever. I'm like, I can't do that.
I can't tell you what walking distance is, but you can tell me where you want to be. Yeah. Sorry. Have you had like sexual orientation come up?
Once where I represented a gay couple on the purchase of a house, and they had 40 plus offers, and the owners were also a gay couple, and they only countered gay couples.
Interesting.
Wow.
Which I thought, okay, well, I mean, there were only 3 counters, which I was happy to get one.
Did your people get it?
No.
Oh, bummer.
No, we didn't. It was just, it went a little bit
higher.
Yeah, it just went a little bit high. But yeah, I don't know. That's
the seller has the right to accept or reject any offer.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this. One time I represented buyers who were using a VA loan, and the sellers accepted our offer, and then the seller's agent didn't deliver the contract, and I knew something fishy was going on. So I called the agent and said, you said we're opening escrow today. Where's the contract? And I made him send me an email saying, the sellers have signed your contract. You were the chosen offer. There is an escrow that's going to open with our inter-office escrow company and So I had this documentation. I had written acceptance, right? So I went to he said, oh, well, somebody else came in with better terms and a higher offer. And so the sellers want to take that offer. And I was like, oh, no. We have written acceptance. And I called the attorney immediately. And I was like, what is up with this? And she said, what type of loan? What was one of the reasons? He said, down payment. Well, VA loans, people don't have to put money down. Mm-hmm. But if you discriminate against a VA buyer because of that, you might be in hot water. So we were able to kind of use that to our advantage to get the property because that seller's agent was doing some dodgy do-battery. But I mean, I don't think I think honestly, sellers want the highest price typically. I haven't seen sellers in your situation really be too specific. Oh, but you did have that one other client that you didn't work with and you ended up not working with because she said, don't show this property to people who are of this particular
She did. And I'm like,
color.
I can't discriminate on your behalf.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
I'm going to show to whoever.
And that's also the line we need to draw. Money is green enough.
No.
To violate this law and risk your license.
True.
Yeah. There's another question that buyers ask all the time that's not federal fair housing related, but it's, why are the sellers selling? Do you think that's a useful question? I hate that question.
Do you get that question? I get that question all the time.
Mm-hmm. What do the buyers think we're going to tell them?
I don't know. I wonder, are they fishing? Is there something wrong with the house?
I think they're fishing
why
for
would
else.
you ask?
Nick, what do you think?
I don't know. That question has never bothered me the way it bothers a lot of people. So I can't feel that because I get it. I understand. It's a real question. There could be something that's really happening, maybe an issue with a neighbor or something weird, but it also most of the time is just that the sellers are moving on to a different space, moving up in size, moving down in size.
And as a listing agent, I'm never going to say to a buyer, they're getting divorced or there's some crisis, he went bankrupt or anything that violates the seller's confidentiality. Sure. So to me, the buyer's asking that, you're going to get the answer they've decided it was time to move on or they outgrew the house. It's like none of your damn business.
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you buying a house? Let's talk about that. How much money do you have in your bank account? Are you willing to send me over the proof of funds without writing an offer? I don't want to have this conversation with you because it's too personal, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well,
True.
if it's a personal matter, of course, like we're not going to disclose our client's business. I just don't, it has never bothered me as a question from a buyer. Like I've never had an issue really with that.
I don't like that question. Don't ask me.
I saw this thing on Instagram once, I forget, on some real estate page, like, why are they selling? And it was basically because they fucking want to.
Right, exactly.
Like, every time I get that question now, that's what I really want to say.
Yeah, exactly. A couple other things. I think, agents don't always know the condition of everything. So we know what the sellers tell us, but the onus is really on who?
The inspector.
The inspector.
The expert in that field.
Exactly. The specialist.
The specialist. Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, just remember, like what we're saying at the open house is what we've been told.
Yeah. And, as a buyer, part of your responsibility is to do your due diligence, and that's what your inspection period is for. So as much as we might provide the information provided by our clients, like sometimes even our clients don't have the correct information.
Mm-hmm.
I once was actually in escrow on a property with buyers where the seller was avid that the roof was new. And we did our inspection, only half of the roof was new. And the new portion was actually done with what the inspector said was old tiles. So it was like, it was a whole thing. And the owner was like, no way. We paid for a completely new roof. And that was what he put in his disclosures. That's a whole different story. That was a whole nother story. Yeah. But, but that happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes contractors say they're going to do something and they don't. They think they paid for something and they didn't, or they think that something is something else. Like I've had a lot of people misuse sewer line and waste lines, like under the house versus underground. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, no, all new sewer lines. What they mean is new waste lines under the house, not a completely new sewer line. So buyer, your job is to hire a sewer line inspector, scope it, and make sure that line is in fact new.
Right. Yes.
100%.
The inspectors do the inspecting. So, like I've had people come in and be like, obviously we know what our sellers tell us, like if this space is permitted or not, but I don't know always if there's, if that closet was turned into half bath with permits or whatever. So permit history is another space where I've had sellers tell me something was permitted and then it comes up later that maybe it wasn't, and it's the buyer's responsibility to ask the questions they need to have answered to meet their due diligence expectations before moving forward, because I don't work for the Department of Building and Safety. I've actually had it where the tax record was wrong. A second bedroom was done with permits. The buyer's agent did not ask for that or do the due diligence or help the buyer do the due diligence prior to. And, it could have created an issue at the end of escrow. But in all the contract documents, it pretty much says buyers need to do their due diligence when it comes to permits and comes to inspections and location, all the things. So that is your job, buyer. And now with that, I am delighted to introduce Leslie Black of WeFund LA, one of ACME's favorite lenders, who's going to give us some tips on things you should not ask your lender, but also state of the market. Welcome, Leslie Black. Woo!
Thank you. This is my first podcast. I'm super excited.
Cool. We're so honored to be able to pop your cherry.
I'm excited.
All right, so I've already prepped everybody. You are going to share with us 3 things you should never ask your lender.
Yes, that's actually something really interesting to share. I do feel that having an open conversation between buyers, who lenders typically work with, is very important to have an open line of communication. Buyers should be able to ask anything and everything, right? We're building trust, and that's super, super important. So I have a couple of tips on what buyers should not ask their lender, but also maybe what they shouldn't also do. My biggest one is a buyer should not ask their lender, or at least phrase the question in this way: how do you get paid? I will say that probably 99.9% of the time, that is how they say it. I think the way to phrase that, because you might be working or talking to different types of lenders, the way to phrase that is, how is your bank compensated for me working with you, right? If you're talking to a broker, they might be compensated by building the fee into your interest rate, or a commission that is paid outside of pocket by the buyer. But a broker does that because they're the middle person between the bank that's going to fund your loan and the buyer that is obtaining that loan. Think of it as even kind of like a car broker, right? Between you and the dealership. The other question is, or the other type of lender is a direct mortgage bank or a big bank. A big bank has a flat fee, right? They usually have, I'll say probably somewhere between $1,100, sometimes even a little less, to about $2,000 flat fee, doesn't change, right? You're going directly to that institution. Same thing with a direct lender. You're going directly to the institution that is borrowing or giving you the funds you're borrowing from, so they function the same as a flat fee. So being able to phrase that question appropriately, I think, is actually going to help the buyer obtain the information that they need.
Can you say it one more time so people can take notes?
Yes. How is your bank compensated for working with me or obtaining my loan?
That's a very nice way to ask that question.
Yeah.
I like it.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
what's number 2?
So number 2, do not ask your lender or share with your lender inspection information. This is absolutely huge. We do not want to see that. We do not want to know that. And I'll let you all touch a little bit on that, because it's such a big thing that buyers do. And I think that, you all have good conversations with your buyers and let them know there is some separation. Although we all work together, there is absolutely separation for certain things. So
Yeah, I mean, I always say go to the source. So if you have a question about the inspection report, ask the inspector. If you have a question about the contracts and the process, ask the real estate agent. If it's something related to the financing, ask the lender. A document received from escrow or title that you don't understand, ask the escrow officer or title. But do not send your disclosures, your contract documents directly to your lender, or your inspection reports, and ask the lender to do basically the job of the agent and giving you guidance. They don't want to know.
Well,
And we don't want them to know either.
and sometimes when information like that is introduced, then the lenders want to see those things completed prior to close of escrow. And if the seller doesn't want to complete the things, or doesn't want to let the buyer complete the things, like termite work, for example, then that could create now a closing issue. How are we going to close if one piece of the puzzle wants it done and we can't get it done?
Didn't you have a client once who the other agent mysteriously forwarded the repair request to the lender after you clients that were not fixing certain things, and tried to bully it into existence because the loan would have been denied? There was some funky thing.
Guys, we are giving you
that was
so much
crazy.
valuable information right now. I hope you're picking up what we are laying down. If you try to finagle your way through this process, it usually will not work, especially if you have a smart team on the other side, which if you're with us, you always will. You always will have people actually paying attention to what's going on. You can completely screw yourself by trying to take a shortcut to the end result.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And then the last thing is, don't lie to your lender, to your mortgage advisor. Let's separate it a little bit between lender and mortgage advisor. As a mortgage advisor, we are your representative. We will take the information, the honest and truthful information regarding your profile, right? Income, credit, assets, financial picture, and we will package that the best way we can to represent you appropriately. There are so many reports behind the scenes that banks now run that it is just completely doing yourself a disservice if you aren't truthful with your mortgage advisor. And I think, Silke, you actually brought up a good point regarding this the other day. Sometimes we will do a pre-underwrite and we will waive loan contingency because your file has already been reviewed by the underwriter. So withholding information can conflict when you're doing that. So don't do yourself a disservice. Always just be honest. There are so many loan programs out there that just honesty is best.
What she's saying is, if you write an offer with no loan contingency based on false information that you have provided to the lender, you might be screwing yourself out of your 3% earnest money deposit because you can't close the deal.
That's right.
I had a deal one time where the buyer was doing like a doctor loan, and, you know, seemed to show, like, it looked all kind of like okay, but what he failed to disclose to the lender he was using is that he needed to refinance another house and take out a home equity line of credit prior to being able to actually, whatever proof of funds, whatever, I don't know what was going on there, but it was like not his, maybe it was his parents, or he couldn't use it. So he had to refi another property in order to actually get those funds, and then that had some kind of seasoning or something that had to happen. Long story short is it almost turned into a lawsuit because they had, you know, they made this offer on false pretenses. And if you read the contract, there are penalties for that. Not just earnest money deposit. There's other stuff if there's actual injury. And we had the property off market for a couple of months. Anyway, lessons learned. It's like sometimes people write, they lie.
Yeah,
sometimes
totally.
they lie.
And I think sometimes too, people just don't think to include certain information. Like I had a client who I don't think was trying to be deceptive, but didn't include tax debt that she had. So we spent months looking in a certain price range. And after that tax debt was disclosed, now our price range changed by like $100,000. And so we had to rejigger what we were looking for, what we were looking at. You know, we had actually gotten into escrow at that point, which is how that then came up. And, you know, and anyway, it threw us for a loop, and it took, you know, it took a toll on the buyer because now expectations have to be adjusted. So, you know, I think it's also about being thoughtful when you're talking to your lender about what information you think might be applicable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question. How many days, you said you guys run a lot of reports now, so it's very difficult to lie to your lender now. Maybe in the olden days it wasn't, but now it is.
The days we remember of 2008.
Yes, those days, which we will also broach in just a moment. But how many days do you really need to be able to go through all those reports and like do the deeper dive?
So they're all done automatically as the loan moves through various phases. And I will say this is why pre-underwrite always helps and why we do it, right? Because as the loan moves through phases, even though a pre-underwrite, right, we call it a TBD in lending, which is you don't have a property identified yet, but we want you as a buyer to be put in the best position, knowing LA market, a lot of cash, but we'll have the underwriter pre-review your loan file. And so your income, your credit, your profile as a whole is reviewed, but also these reports are run at this time. So that's the important part about that. Of course, as we talked about earlier, the property also needs to be approved, but it allows us to do all of those checks and balances from the beginning.
Right, so you could do before, but what if you didn't? Like if you didn't do pre-underwriting, like do you need 7 days?
Yeah, I would say seven days is pretty safe.
So like the tax debt thing would have come up in 7 days.
Exactly.
That's good to know. Good to know.
And I think it came up pretty fast on that transaction for you, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what changes are happening in the market because everybody wants to talk about it on a national level, and I am like, this is local. What's going on locally?
This is my favorite subject, and I'll say this. When it comes to rates, when it comes to the mortgage industry, sometimes real estate as well, the media loves to sell headlines, right? And I think that as consumers, we know the headlines that had the biggest stories, that had the largest impacts. And so I will just kind of give you a brief overview of what we see. We do anticipate inflation, so let's talk about inflation a little bit. Inflation is a driving force for higher interest rates right now. That is the bottom line. High inflation leads to higher rates. So we expect inflation to peak sometime later this year, probably around October. And so once that happens, inflation will start to dip. And what will happen to the bond market, which is rates, they will also start to dip. And so that is what we anticipate, and that is what we expect for 2023. Yes, we expect lower rates for 2023. However, let's also talk about housing and how we've seen economically during these cycles, housing react at this time. So if we go back as far back as 1950, 1960, our economy tends to move in decades of cycles. And so, cycles of decades. Wait.
Decades of cycles too. It's like they're like 10-year cycles.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, you're right. Both ways.
In that scenario, every time we've seen rates go up because of inflation, we've also seen housing thrive. And so the $1 million question, when is the bubble coming? What is going to happen to housing? Likely the cost and the price you pay for a home this year, even in the higher rate environment we have now, is still going to be better than the cost and the price that you will pay come next year in a lower rate environment, right? Think about lower rates, that entices buyers. The media is going to put it everywhere. We're going to have buyers flood the market again.
It's crazy to me that people think, I mean, first of all, having the kind of longer scale vision is really useful in informing yourself on how interest rates affect the home buying process, right? Like you can look at 1950s rates, 60s rates, 70s rates, even the rate I had when I first bought my house in my very first place in DC, it was like 6.5% or something. And then it came down to 5. People were like, wow, this is wildly low. And now we're talking about 5, like it's like so high, you know. But anyway, perspective does make a difference.
Yeah, and to touch on that a little bit, to even talk about, let's look just, I would say, a year prior to the pandemic. In 2017 and 2018, we had Fed rate hikes imposed during that time. In 2018, the rates were absolutely in the 5s. Yes, in 2018 with the Fed rate hikes that were being imposed. What happened after this rate hike cycle? The same thing that we're talking about is going to happen next year. The rates went down. So if you were a homeowner, and I've talked to a lot of clients that purchased at this time, if you were a homeowner that bought in 17 and 18, you were refinancing come August 2019. And I remember the date because my husband and I were in San Francisco visiting friends, and I actually was stuck in the hotel room working because rates had started to go down that weekend. So we were refinancing August 2019, take it into February 2020, pre-pandemic. We thought these rates were absolutely excellent, right? Of course, what did the pandemic bring? The lowest rates in US history, right? Something unprecedented. But you'll start to hear as a consumer through the media, recession. It is not the same as 2008. Yes, a recessionary period brings lower rates, which we're talking about for next year. A recessionary period also brings a thriving housing market, which we're talking about for the next 1 to 2 years. It does not bring 2008.
Right. I mean, the conditions are so different. But that's what a lot of people who are buying, like that's their most recent recollection of the housing market being like under stress. But in fact, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, because when interest rates are low, you get 40 offers on every property. And it's a crazy madhouse. To me, this is the time to buy. You've got slightly higher interest rates. There are other optional programs that you could go for, like an ARM, and refinance when the rates come back down, but have like a slightly lower interest rate during that period. Because, as we've discussed before on Under All Is the Land, the first 10 years of a conventional loan are mostly interest anyway. So the fact that on an ARM, all you're required to pay is interest and there's no prepayment penalty for paying down the principal, you can pretty much get on the same schedule so that you're picking up right where you left off when you do go to refinance. But also, there's a little bit less competition. You might have more of an advantage. And in that way, the media, it really screws the ordinary buyer and seller because it makes them think there's some stressful situation where they should panic sell or, completely freak out and make losing offers on houses that you love and could afford. I mean, housing is not like buying a car. It's not like it loses value the minute you drive it off the lot. It goes in a cycle, yes, but you hold until it's the right time to sell. This is not rocket science.
Totally. And I think people need to stop relying so much on headlines and just look at the data and look at what things are doing. Like a lot of people are focused on price drops happening, but they're not looking at the strategy of the houses that are experiencing the price drops. Are they dropping because the seller has higher than higher expectations than what the house can actually bear?
Right.
Because that's a lot of the sellers in this market who have seen a very strong market and have seen properties that maybe have more work done to them or, are more unique, sell for higher prices, and then they list them at those prices and they don't get it. So guess what's going to happen? A price drop, But if you look at the properties that are well listed and, the strategy is
beautiful pictures,
beautiful, yeah,
clever marketing.
Exactly. Then you see that they still get multiple offers and they still end up going over asking. So it's you really have to look at what you're assessing rather than just relying on that price drop headline.
Those national headlines are always talking about housing prices. Everything's are selling for 20% over list price. I'm like, When are they going to stop doing that? List price is a marketing tool. It is set semi-arbitrarily by a listing advisor, agent, who looks at the comps and goes, you know what? Everybody in Northeast LA right now is pricing 400,000 under. So if we price it closer to where we want, it's not going to sell. We need to not look like the most expensive thing on the block. Let's price in that gang. Let's go with the group because the market is what the market is. The person you need to talk to really is your real estate agent. We're invested in long-term relationships, so we're not going to give you bad advice, but we do have the benefit of experience and perspective, and we've watched our clients go through the cycle. So we know this is not that.
Totally. Use the interest rates as a tool. When they buy, get it into a property, you can refinance when they come down again.
Yeah, and a stat for that, the average lifespan of a mortgage in California, 5 to 8 years.
Oh,
Think about that, right? We're talking about a great opportunity for refinancing in the next year or so, but the average lifespan of a mortgage in California is 5 to 8 years. That is how our economy moves. It is so, so, so important, right? And the other thing that I will say in general is, as a buyer on the finance side for my clients, focus on that monthly mortgage payment. That is what you're budgeting for. I think that for consumers, there was a mindset shift of rates went in January 2022, a couple months ago, to April 2022, from, let's say, high 2s, low 3s, to high 4s, low 5s, right? That increase, I think, as a consumer was pretty shocking, right? But to know that we have rates in the 5s today, and to know we had them in 2018, just so much happened with the pandemic, right? That we think shorter term, we remember shorter term, but we saw those rates because of the pandemic, right? And it was affecting our economy. So we knew those rates were short-lived. So if you know that we have seen rates in 2018 in the 5s, and we're back there now, granted, a very drastic shift in a matter of 4 months, probably the most drastic increase in rates we have seen in US history. But aside from that, focus on the monthly mortgage payment. Does that make sense? And then when you refinance down the line, that's icing on the cake. Now you're saving even more, right? But you're also building wealth. You're building appreciation.
We were talking about that. Rental rates in LA have risen. What was the number that we came up with?
We said like 15%.
15% over last year. So if you think a 1 or a 2% increase in an interest rate is something, try paying 50% higher rent on an asset you don't even own. Just paying someone else's mortgage.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for blessing us with your brilliance. Wow, she's amazing.
She sure is.
She saved our butts
she is
on a lot
fast.
of deals too.
Yeah, seriously.
She's also very fast.
She's fast. She saved our buyers' butts, I should say.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's so refreshing to speak with somebody who has such a very clear point of view.
Totally.
It's empowering. These are the types of lenders that buyers need to cut through all the crap and demystify the process for them, so they don't feel paralyzed by headlines.
Totally.
And I love it gives us backup, because these are the things we're saying to our clients. And I sometimes feel like they're like, well, but my dad said this and the headline said this. I'm like, well, but here's a lender now saying the same thing. So it's good. She's just it's a helpful source and just resource.
Totally.
It's great.
And she makes it so digestible. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
Clear.
Me too.
She definitely, it makes such a difference to have a good lender be your team member in the process. Like, having her has been instrumental in me getting so many deals through.
100%.
Yeah.
I can't sing her praises loud enough. It's just,
I hope she can hear this right now.
There's so many buyers that come in with their house bank or that lender that blah, blah, blah referred them to out of state or whatever. It's just it is so important to have a lender that knows the market, that is respected, that other agents possibly have heard of as well. It can really make or break a deal. And people that stick to their timelines and whatever. I could go on. And people that can help you through
understanding what's happening right now, which seems to be the biggest conundrum for a lot of buyers who have kind of started their search and stopped, or are confused, don't know what price point they want to land at because their monthly payment's gone up, and don't have a long-term vision. She's got the ability to explain how to make a plan around changing market conditions, which actually aren't that dramatic.
Yeah, Totally.
Yeah. It's not like we're at 9%.
Right.
It's 5.
Right.
Come on.
It's 5. So we hope you have enjoyed today's episode and learned a few things about how to behave at an open house if you're a buyer or an agent. And we will honor you with the same thing if we come into your open house as agent. By the way, we're not sponsored by LaCroix, but we're open to it. So, if anybody's out there, you want to send us some LaCroix, we'll put them right here. And finally, my parting words today of advice for you guys, you buyers out there. This is very important. This is probably the most important thing I'm going to say all day. Don't poop at the open house. We'll see you next time on Under All Is the Land. I'm Courtney Poulos, out.
Leslie's the shit.
Yeah. Awesome. The best.
Coming to you live from ACME Real Estate in Los Angeles, California. It's Under All Is the Land with your host, Courtney Poulos, Silke Fernald, and Dominique Madden. Yeah, Under All